All right, here are your headlines for this afternoon. A newly introduced resolution from Congresswoman Cori Bush has many people talking. Representative Bush says she believes some Republican members of Congress incited a domestic terror attack and should face consequences. The resolution calls for the expulsion of the members who tried to overturn the election. It comes after Donald Trump supporters converged on Washington, D.C. for a rally to contest the results of November's general election. Now, Trump lost the election, but his supporters rioted and stormed the U.S. Capitol building. The chaos led to lawmakers and members being trapped inside the Capitol, resulting in the mobilization of the D.C., Virginia, and Maryland National Guards. D.C. Mayor Muriel Bowser also issued a 6 p.m. curfew for the city. I want to read a tweet Congresswoman Bush posted. I believe the Republican members of Congress who have incited this domestic terror attack through their attempts to overturn the election must face consequences. They have broken their sacred oath of office. I will be introducing a resolution calling for their expulsion. Along with this, Congresswoman Ilhan Omar was actually preparing and finalizing articles of impeachment while she waited the riot out in a secure location. So getting to work immediately. And this right there was co-sponsored by Congresswoman Ayanna Pressley. I saw earlier a tweet AOC saying that other members of Congress were signing on to this. And talking about that, we're going to talk about the 25th Amendment later on in the show. But it's interesting because the 25th Amendment right now, as it stands, is the only option if you want him out of office because, Congress is recessed until after the inauguration. So unless they change that, and a lot of people are criticizing that because you got a lot of talk about them saying, this is a problem, he needs to be out, but they're leaving it on Mike Pence. Also, I think the number of Trump administration officials that have resigned after all of this, effective immediately, I think the number is up to 6 or 7, and it's being reported that people in the West Wing today are depressed, and those who don't already have jobs lined up are worried that they are unemployable. I mean, this is something that a lot of people are pointing out is that what we saw yesterday, of course, because it involved the U.S. Capitol building, was something that we hadn't seen before. But a lot of the rhetoric and violence and everything else that went on, you see at Trump rallies. So none of this was necessarily surprising.
They just crossed the line for real, for real. And even Joe Biden went on record to say if this was anyone else other than the Trump mob that went inside that building, it would have ended so differently. There would have been a lot more people who would have been shot. And unfortunately, 4 people have died. We'll talk about that later on in the show. But it would have been probably 20 times more of that. And we know that for a fact, right?
Yeah, I agree. But I just wanted to add on to Cori Bush. Also, in addition to that, she also has a petition that's on her Twitter page that you guys can go and check out. It only needs 204,800 signatures, and so far it's at 170,000 signatures. And it's called Hold Them Accountable. So she's getting people to sign on that petition as well. You can get that on her Twitter page. I just wanted to add that little piece in there.
Yeah, well, I mean, the reality of the situation is that these people place their hand on a Bible and pledge their allegiance to the Constitution, upholding the laws of this country, and to being a voice for their constituents. And they are falling so drastically short of that. They pledge their allegiance to a demagogue. And they really do need to face consequences for that. There's got to be some kind of morality clause involved in, becoming a part of the political landscape in terms of becoming, voted into office,
Can we also talk about the Capitol Police? Because we've all seen those videos, right? We've seen a lot
of them taking selfies.
Listen, taking selfies. Me and Romeo were just watching a video of a police officer kind of ushering people in, saying, come on.
Like it's a concert or something.
Right. Nancy Pelosi asked for the Capitol Police chief to resign. She also called out the FBI, the Department of Defense. She says there was a failure of leadership at the top of the Capitol Police, saying that the police chief hasn't even called them once since this happened.
Yeah, that's a problem.
Right.
Yeah. It definitely is a problem. And Brooke, did you see the one where the police officer was escorting the lady down the stairs?
Yes. Like this woman had just broken into the Capitol building. Right.
It was a mess. Okay, now moving right along. Shortly before 4 a.m., after lawmakers formally tabulated each state's electoral college votes, Vice President Pence announced before a joint session of Congress that Biden and Vice President-elect Kamala Harris had won 306 votes over Trump's 232. The day's proceedings were unprecedented even before the arrival of the violent mob, as more than 100 of Trump's closest allies in both chambers had vowed to challenge the election results in as many as 6 battleground states where they claimed without evidence that fraud took place. I wanted to add, so you guys know that Donald Trump's Twitter and everything has been locked down. So he finally, everyone last night was talking about him finally conceding, and but he couldn't put it on his page. So did you guys see the statement that he? Yeah. Okay, everyone saw it, but just for a couple of people, the statement by President Donald Trump, he says, "Even though I totally disagree with the outcome of the election and the facts bear me out, nevertheless, there will be an orderly transition on January 20th. I have always said, going forward." But basically, bottom line is he still ended it with "Make America Great Again," but he did do a concession speech, I guess. But I just thought it was just interesting that he couldn't even say it for himself. He had to send it through a third party. I thought that was kind of interesting.
And on top of that, do we really believe it? No. I mean, is it sincere? Absolutely not. Here's a man that continues. He has to open up every statement. Even though I got robbed in this election, let it go. Your time is done. You are finished. Soon to be maybe locked behind bars. That's what some people are hoping and wishing for, Because when I think about this, and I think about what we as black people went through this year, what America went through this year, it was just so relieving to finally say, okay, this is done. We now know that Biden's going to be the next president, which we already knew, but now it's confirmed.
Right. For the 55th time last night, we watched Joe Biden and Kamala Harris win the election.
Again.
It felt like the 1,000th time, and also such a waste of time spending debating something that has been disproven and that we know also perpetuated a lot of this violence. It riled these people up. They felt like they were fighting for the true winner because people they trust were telling them that that's what they needed to do. And, we talked about it yesterday, the lawmakers that kind of reversed course, right? The senators that decided, okay, no longer going to object. But still, so much time was wasted last night with members of Congress.
Yeah, it really
objecting.
was.
And so much time was wasted.
Literally, you think about it, so many other things, like you said, Brooke, could have been done in that time. All day yesterday was, I don't want to say wasted, but it was kind of like so many other
it was wasted.
Right, so many more important things could have been done all day yesterday. And, just back to the concession, I feel like we waited for so long to hear him say something that it was just kind of like this little silly remark that he gave was just kind of like, you could have saved that. We already knew that Biden and Kamala.
It's like an apology. You're like, oh, you don't even mean it. Why
you didn't
say
even
it?
need to.
Right. They were up until 4:00 in the morning East Coast time. Yeah, this is come on.
Yeah, that's a lot. All right, 4 people died on Wednesday, including one woman who was shot by a police officer amid protests and rioting on Capitol Hill that resulted in dozens of demonstrators being arrested. Police announced. Metropolitan Police Department Chief Robert Conti called the rioting by pro-Trump demonstrators shameful during a news conference alongside Mayor Muriel Bowser. Conte said at least 14 officers sustained injuries during the rioting, with one officer pulled into the crowd and assaulted, resulting in serious injuries that required hospitalization. Another officer was also hospitalized. In response to the civil unrest on Capitol Hill, Bowser issued a curfew for the district beginning at 6 p.m. on Wednesday. She also extended an emergency declaration in the city until January 21st, allowing the city to access additional resources to put a stop to any further civil disturbances. Now, this should have been done before this little so-called protest came into play, right?
Here's the thing, Romeo, is that Muriel Bowser, she couldn't do anything about the National Guard. That's all she can do is institute like a curfew. It's up to the president. He's the one that can call the National Guard as it relates to the district, which he's the one that incited the riot, which the National Guard was needed for. So that's why it took so much time. And also, Christopher Miller, who's the acting Secretary of Defense, he at first denied the request for the National Guard. There's a reason why it took so long for law enforcement to get their act together when it came to, yesterday's, chaos.
Right. So one thing I wanted to add, so I know we all were talking about the first person that it was reported that was killed, Ashley Babbitt. So what I want to add is the day before she was shot and killed, she put out a message on, I believe it was Instagram or Twitter, I forgot which one. She says, "Nothing will stop us. They can try and try and try, but the storm is here and it is descending upon DC in less than 24 hours, dark to light." So these people, they came ready, they came prepared, and I mean, of course, rest in peace to Ashley. But they were ready. They were ready for what happened yesterday.
People like her found identity in this quote unquote movement. Okay, they build this as a revolution. They are so. Did you see the costumes that these people showed up at the Capitol? They think this is a movie. Something is wrong with these people. They have literally. there's no difference between these people, Trump's cult, and Muslims who have been indoctrinated and radicalized by ISIS. There's no difference whatsoever between them and the people that they disdain. It's ridiculous. Like, it's completely ridiculous. You say R.I.P. to her, but I mean, if you watch her Instagram profile, she's not the most likable woman. You know, she was heading towards the rapture. You know what I'm saying?
I understand. No, and we don't at all want to like absolve personal responsibility. I mean, she suffered the ultimate cost of this behavior. I just still think just lawmakers and how they're feeling today. Obviously, you know, a lot of them were physically scared, actually in their own bodies.
And they should have been
yesterday, and that shook a lot of them up. But for human beings, regardless of how these people behaved, regardless of who they are, what their beliefs are, 4 of people who are supporters of those lawmakers died, lost their lives. Human beings actually lost their lives behind this. How do you sit with that?
Yeah, and when we say that's blood on Trump's hands,
Trump seems to be sitting with it just fine because he hasn't mentioned it at all.
No.
He could care less what the consequences of inciting that riot was. He does not care whatsoever.
No.
So
well, he did his part. He sent them out there and he sat back and watched everything that happened.
Yeah,
exactly.
You know, if he wants to make something like this happen, then he needs to go out there with them. Be a part of it. If that's how you feel, be a part of it. Don't just stand back. But he's not a real man. So it is what it is.
Don't get me started on that, Romeo, okay? All right.
All right.
I'll be right back with that.
We like it when you get started, though. I'm like, all right, keep going.
Just wait.
We like it when you get fired up.
Just wait, okay? Now, administration officials have started discussing the possibility of invoking the 25th Amendment to remove President Trump from office, according to numerous sources familiar with the matter. Speaker of the House Nancy Pelosi and Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer called on Mike Pence to invoke the 25th Amendment, an extraordinary measure which would require a majority of the cabinet officials plus VP Pence to declare to Congress that Trump is unable to fulfill his duties as president. If Pence declines to act, Pelosi has indicated that top Democrats are prepared to impeach Trump for a second time. Although the discussions of Trump's removal from office appear to be a hot topic, it's not clear whether they have reached the level of any cabinet officials. Pelosi and Schumer both tried to reach Pence today by phone, but were unsuccessful. In what seems to be a method of forcing his hand to answer, however, both leaders held press conferences where they minced no words on the danger Trump is to this country and democracy and how imperative it is to remove him. It is not clear that officials would actually move forward with invoking the 25th Amendment or that enough cabinet members would even support it, particularly given that Trump only has 2 weeks left in office. A White House official said Pence had not been approached nor involved in any pursuit of the 25th Amendment. Still, the fact that this is being discussed reflects how rapidly Trump's standing has deteriorated over the course of the day Wednesday, which saw him urge supporters to march on the Capitol before they forced their way into the building after overwhelming police. Now, the subject's come up a lot in terms of the 25th Amendment, in regards to things that Trump has done. His tweets about having bigger nukes than the leader of North Korea, the firing of James Comey. So the 25th Amendment has several sections, and it's the 4th one that applies to Trump. It's how to handle the rare instances in which a president's team disputes his ability to serve. He basically, has a junior high school civics class level of political understanding. Now, I want to throw up a graphic right now that the NAACP posted on Instagram. It's about the word insurrection. Now, Google hits have gone up by, 600,000 Googling the word insurrection after Biden used it. And it's defined as a violent uprising against an authority or government, which is exactly what took place yesterday. It's been bandied around, et cetera. Biden said that this was an assault on the citadel of liberty, on democracy and on the Constitution. And Biden gave a fiery speech today where he was introducing the new attorney general. So I want to have you guys take a look at what he said, and then we'll discuss afterwards.
Worked on the audio here.
All right, it looks like we're having just some slight technical issues. But you'll remember Romeo brought this up, kind of some of the really strong points that he made.
Yes.
During this morning about what he said, kind of comparing what happened. And also, we have a bit of breaking news. Sources right now are telling CNN that a 5th person is now dead, stemming from events yesterday, a U.S. Capitol police officer.
Oh, wow. Unbelievable.
has now died because of
That's-
injuries sustained yesterday during the riots.
That's unbelievable. Just, we were having audio issues, but I just wanted to summarize what Biden was saying in that particular clip. Right before, he introduces Merrick Garland as the appointed Attorney General. He discusses exactly what that was yesterday. That was not protesting. That was a riotous mob. That was insurrection. Those were domestic terrorists. He put the label on those people that they deserve. And it is important that leaders say these words. They don't run away from it. They don't shirk the responsibility of calling a thing a thing.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And then the moment we were all waiting for, because everybody had talked about the fact that if this was a Black Lives Matter protest,
Yes.
it would have ended very differently. There would have been bodies strewn all over the place. And the fact of the matter is that when there was a Black Lives Matter protest, they were prepared. The National Guard, all of those officers were lined up on the steps of the Capitol and prepared for that. And they didn't know to expect violence.
They should have known.
They didn't know that this was going to happen. This all happened. This was all organized on Facebook.
Right.
There's no secret here. So Biden actually saying those words, that if this was a Black Lives Matter protest, it would have ended differently. That needed to be said by the incoming leader of the free
2
world.
weeks, right?
Yeah.
I agree that I agree, and I did get a chance to watch the video. Melissa, sorry we couldn't get the audio, but Joy Reid, she's a TV reporter. She went viral today with a video that was posted about her, and just really quickly, what she was saying the same thing, that if it was a Black Lives Matter protest, it would have totally been different. I just really want to say what she said earlier today. She says that that here we go. Sorry. She says that she's talking about white people compared to Black people. She says in their mind, they own the Capitol, they own the country, the cops work for them, they own the president, they own the White House. When you think you own the place, you're not afraid of the police, and they're not going to hurt us because we are one and the same. So sorry I couldn't find it. I'm scrambling, but I just had to read that point because it was powerful, and everyone's been
Very
showing
powerful,
that video all day, and it's very, very true. Like when you have that privilege and you feel like you own the place, what do you have to be afraid of?
It's nice to see people calling a thing a thing.
Yeah.
From news anchors to the new leader of the free world.
Absolutely.
And to the 25th Amendment, back to kind of what Melissa was saying, and then we'll move on. But, this depends on, you need Trump cabinet members and a very important person, the Vice President of the United States, Mike Pence. What will Pence do? Well, we have a little idea as to what he's doing or not doing right now, because at a presser early this morning in New York, Senator Chuck Schumer said he and Speaker Pelosi tried to call Vice President Pence this morning to tell him to invoke the 25th Amendment.
And he didn't answer the
Schumer
phone.
says they kept us on hold for 25 minutes and then came on, so nearly half an hour on hold.
Yeah.
Then came on the line and said the Vice President would not come to the phone.
Yep.
So that's what we're dealing with right now.
However, a senator from your home state, Oklahoma, stated that he had a conversation with Mike Pence and that he has never seen Mike Pence angrier at Trump than he saw after yesterday's events. And quote unquote said that Mike Pence was like, after all that I've done with Trump or done for Trump. And I'm just like,
He should have picked up the phone then.
he should have picked up the phone.
Yeah, he should have did that.
All right, so we've got to move on to this next story. It's so much going on. I hate that we have to move on, but this is an important story too. D.C. police confirmed late Wednesday explosives were found near the U.S. Capitol as President Trump's supporters rioted in the area. Chief Robert Conti, Romeo was just telling you about him. He also told reporters D.C.'s Metropolitan Police Department recovered and removed one pipe bomb from the Democratic National Committee and another from the Republican National Committee. The chief also says police found a cooler with Molotov cocktails in a vehicle that had a long gun in it on the Capitol grounds. So what office looking for ballots, busting windows, tearing up things, tearing things down, a police officer dead, 4 civilians dead, and bombs. They actually found bombs in the building. They found bombs in the building, and so much stuff happened that aspect didn't even go viral. They found
what
bombs
does
in
that
the
tell you
building.
about their intentions, right? They were
People
coming
were losing their mind
to
when
damage
Target
the
was
building. They
being
were coming
broken
to hurt
into.
people, and God forbid if they would have got their hands to Nancy Pelosi in person. God only knows what would have happened in that situation. I'm gonna tell you right now because I feel like they have it out for mainly her, but everybody.
You're right.
All right, but
Yeah.
for this to happen, as we look at this on the screen, how can you not be upset because you see this? They're climbing the walls of the Capitol.
Crazy.
And even after all of that, they still have Republicans going back into the session and
Say it.
objecting to the certification of the election.
It's like, are
how
you serious?
dare they?
Yeah.
Did you guys see that Nancy Pelosi's the podium was being sold online? That someone's like,
Because you saw the
Yeah.
guy walk out with
Yeah.
it.
So the
he
podium-
walked
I
out
know.
with a smile.
Crazy.
And someone took a picture of him.
And it's being sold online. Someone's now trying to sell it. But I just want to say one little thing before I drop the mic. There was an actual bomb found at the state capitol. So how are we still even calling this a protest?
We're not.
At this point. Like,
We're
there's
not.
there's no way you can call an actual
Right.
bomb a protest. Those two things cannot go together. They just
No,
can't.
they can't go
At
together.
Black Lives
You're
Matter, when
right.
we were protesting, we didn't hear anything about a bomb. You
Right.
know, we heard, tear gas and things like that towards us, but there were no bombs because we were actually peacefully protesting. So totally two different things. Two totally different things. Now, taking it to our YouTube soulmates, you guys have a lot to talk about. You guys are fired up, just like we are, and I love to see it, okay? Nikki 2.0, she says, my show, let's talk about it while keeping it real. We got you, girl. Now, Rachel says, Rep. Cori Bush is the truth. And then Kim Johnson says, yes, we love it when Melissa gets fired up. She's so smart.
We do.
As well as her co-host. So, but Melissa, hopefully we'll get some fire up under you before the show.
You better believe it.
It's already there. I see it.
I know when Melissa says, "Don't let me," we're like, "No, we want it." Yeah,
No,
we like
bring
it.
that. We want that energy.
We want the fire. Now, Romeo.